People only do things that they're ready, willing, and able to do. So they might not be ready to, open up to you about everything in their lives on that first visit, and that's okay. It's not necessarily, it's not something you can actually force, right? So you have to give it time.
There are definitely times, especially if it's a new patient or if it's a patient that you don't have a great rapport with, that you'll sense in an interview or in a conversation that there is resistance. Sometimes they'll even tell you, like, I don't really feel comfortable talking about that, or I don't want to talk about that. My advice in that situation is just to be honest with yourself in that moment. Do you really need to know this? I do think that there are some times when we get caught up in our own thinking through a differential diagnosis that we don't actually think, well, how likely is it that they have this or that? And that their resistance can be enough of a reason to maybe not ask a question, to say, okay, if you don't want to answer, that's okay. There are definitely times, though, that you will need to know, you will need to ask the question. And I think in those situations, again, just being very genuine with the patient and saying, I know that this is uncomfortable. I know that this isn't something that is easy to talk about, but this is why I want to know. In my experience, most patients at that point are very willing to share. Occasionally, you'll have a patient that it's just very personal for them. And then you can gauge for yourself, do you feel comfortable saying, why do you think this is so hard to talk about? Some providers are good at that and can enter into that level of discourse with the patient, especially if they know the patient well. If that's not something you're comfortable with, or if you don't know the patient very well, then maybe just saying, this is why I'd like to know. I understand if it's too hard for you to talk about right now. Maybe we can come back to it later, either later in that interview if it's very important, or at another visit, another time.